On September 15, 2006, an EasyJet Airbus A319, flying from Alicante to Bristol, suddenly lost almost every major system at 32,000 feet. The cockpit went dark, the radios died, and the aircraft vanished from radar, completely invisible to air traffic control. Even its collision avoidance system went silent for a few minutes. Nobody knew if the plane had crashed, exploded, or disappeared into thin air. What followed was a real mid-air nightmare that nearly ended in catastrophe. When everything fails. The shocking part is that this disaster didn't start in the sky. It started quietly on the ground, with a tiny electrical fault that everyone thought was no big deal. The Airbus A319, registration Golf Echo Zulu Alpha Charlie, was almost new. It was just 6 months old, but hidden beneath its shiny EasyJet orange paint was a recurring electrical problem that had never been properly fixed. That morning, the crew assigned to Flight 6074 prepared for what seemed like a normal hop from Alicante to Bristol. The captain was 42, with almost 9,000 hours of flying experience, but still new to the Airbus series. The first officer, 34, had slightly more time on type, but neither pilot had ever dealt with what was about to happen. Their day began smoothly. They had flown down to Alicante earlier, expecting to change aircraft for the return flight. But as they were descending, a message appeared on their aircraft communications addressing and reporting system. The plane they were scheduled to take back had an electrical fault. The number 1 generator had failed. They were told to fly home with that generator turned off. That might sound risky, but it wasn't unusual. The Airbus A319 has multiple backup systems. 1 generator per engine, a third on the auxiliary power unit, or APU, and an emergency turbine called the ram air turbine, or RAT, that can generate power from the airflow. It's designed so that no single failure could ever bring the aircraft down. In theory, the setup was flawless. The captain's instruments were powered by one side, the first officer's by the other, and an essential bus connected to both for redundancy. If one system failed, the other could instantly take over. But this plane had a history of generator issues, and it wasn't alone. Many Airbus A320 family jets built that year carried defective static random access memory chips in their generator control units, or GCUs. These GCUs managed the electrical output from each engine. When the chips glitched, the generator could fail without warning. Engineers had been swapping them out for months, but the problem kept returning. The night before the flight, technicians at London Stansted replaced the aircraft's number 1 GCU and powered it up for testing. It tripped again immediately. They reset it, and it seemed fine, so they approved the aircraft for flight. It was a big mistake. That same unit had already failed on 3 other planes, been sent back to the manufacturer, tested, and reinstalled, each time declared serviceable. The underlying defect had never been found. The next morning, the plane left Stansted for Alicante with passengers on board. 20 minutes into the flight, the crew heard a faint metallic clunk. The number 1 generator tripped offline, and alerts filled the cockpit. The system automatically rerouted power to the remaining generator as designed. The pilots tried resetting the failed unit, but no luck. They started the APU, reconfigured the system, and continued the flight safely. Maintenance control confirmed they could fly with 1 generator off. Under the minimum equipment list, the APU could supply that side for up to 10 days, as long as altitude and route restrictions were followed. The flight arrived in Alicante without issue. What no one realized was that this plane's electrical system had just given its final warning. That harmless clunk in the air was not the end of the problem. It was the beginning. The huge disaster. The new EasyJet crew reached Alicante that morning, unaware of the trap waiting for them. The previous captain handed them the aircraft with a quick note that the generator one was out, but everything else worked fine. He said, "Just run the APU during the flight." It was routine, simple, nothing alarming. The captain accepted the jet, filed his flight plan, and double-checked fuel. The pre-flight inspection showed nothing unusual. Every system passed. Every light worked. But deep in the electrical bay, a faulty sensor sat ready to cause havoc. At 9:30 in the morning, Flight 6074 took off from Alicante with 144 people on board. For nearly an hour, everything was flawless. The cockpit was calm, the crew relaxed, but the silence didn't last. Around 10:52 a.m., while crossing western France, the trouble began. A single faulty sensor inside the generator control unit made a false reading. It suddenly sensed electricity flowing backward through the circuit. It was a dangerous condition if it were real, but it wasn't. The sensor lied. The GCU reacted automatically and did exactly what it was designed to do in such a case. It isolated the affected electrical side to protect it. In an instant, that single action cut off half of the airplane's power. Inside the cockpit, a heavy clunk echoed through the floor. The captain's screens went black. The autopilot disconnected. The autothrust vanished. Warning lights blinked once, then even those died. Half the cockpit was now dark. The first officer's instruments still worked, powered by the right-hand network. The captain quickly handed over control. Now the aircraft was being flown manually at 32,000 feet, in alternate control law, with no automation and no safety margins. The first officer focused on keeping the plane steady. The captain tried to figure out what had just happened. The ECAM system, which is basically the screen that normally lists warnings and procedures, was only half alive. The upper display was dead, the lower one flickering. The few messages it showed told about multiple electrical faults, hydraulic losses, and flight control warnings. And then the true horror began. The essential bus had failed at that point, and dozens of key systems went offline at once. The blue hydraulic system shut down. 2 of the 3 air data computers went dark. Cabin pressure controls died, meaning the plane could no longer adjust oxygen levels automatically. Even the oxygen mask system was disabled. If the cabin had depressurized, the masks wouldn't have dropped. Communication systems failed too. The main VHF radio, which connects pilots to air traffic control, was powered by the dead side. The backup radios still had power, but their control panels didn't. The pilots could no longer talk to anyone. They were completely cut off, flying blind and silent. Meanwhile, inside the Brest Area Control Center in France, the radar operator suddenly saw EasyJet 6074 disappear from his screen. The transponder had gone offline, leaving no code, no altitude, no trace. Brest had no primary radar coverage in that region. Without the transponder, the Airbus had become invisible. The controller called repeatedly. Other aircraft nearby were asked to relay messages, but there was only silence. The EasyJet flight was gone, at least that's what it looked like. For a moment, the controllers believed it had crashed. Then came the most chilling part of all. An American Airlines Boeing 777, Flight 63, was cruising westbound through the same airspace, also at 32,000 feet. The controller realized that if the EasyJet plane hadn't gone down, it was now directly in the 777's path. And because both planes' collision avoidance systems relied on transponders, they couldn't see each other. 2 aircraft, invisible to one another, closing in at hundreds of miles per hour. The controller had seconds to act. He ordered American 63 to descend immediately to 31,000 feet. The 777's pilots obeyed at once. Moments later, they saw it. An EasyJet A319 crossing right in front of them. No lights, no signal, completely silent. It passed just 2.7 nautical miles ahead and 600 feet above. That's barely 20 seconds of flight separation. One hesitation, and it would have been a mid-air collision over France. Back in the EasyJet cockpit, the pilots had no idea how close they had come to disaster. They were too busy fighting the blackout. The captain kept pressing the AC essential feed button, hoping for power to return. Still nothing. He cycled switches, turned the APU off and on, and even tried resetting the generator. There was still no response. The first officer stayed calm, flying manually with what few instruments he had left. The aircraft was controllable, but stripped of most of its protective systems. Any mistake could have been fatal. The aftermath, then one last glimmer of hope. The captain switched over to the standby transponder. The screen was mostly dark, but suddenly, the digits flickered to life. He couldn't tell if it was transmitting, but he decided to try something bold. He dialed in the emergency code, 7700. Within seconds, the aircraft's signal reappeared on radar back at Brest. Finally, the controllers had confirmation. The plane wasn't gone. It was in trouble, but still flying. Now that at least someone knew where they were, the crew could focus on what mattered next, getting the plane on the ground. The captain scrolled through the few working system pages on the E.CAM. It showed false data, incomplete readouts, and missing sensors. The cabin pressure looked fine, even though both controllers were dead. The hydraulics page claimed the emergency turbine had deployed, which it hadn't. The left side sensors, all powered by the failed electrical network, were blind. The pilots couldn't rely on half the data they were seeing. They rebooted the APU, shut it down, started it again. Still no change. The electrical bus that powered half the jet was completely dead. It became obvious there was no way to bring it back. The captain and first officer now had one mission: land without breaking anything or anyone. But there was one major problem left. They were invisible, silent, and flying toward one of the busiest pieces of airspace in Europe. Any sudden deviation from their flight plan could be seen as a threat. The captain knew that. It was 2006, just 5 years after 9/11, and the last thing anyone wanted was a silent commercial jet flying off course into London's approach corridors. The decision they made was bold but smart. They would stick to the plan. No diversions, no surprises, no changes in heading or altitude. If they stayed predictable, air traffic control could move everyone else out of the way. The captain even worried that fighter jets might intercept them if they made a wrong move. Without working lights or radios, how could they show they were under control? The risk of being mistaken for a hijacked aircraft was real, so they carried on toward Bristol, quietly, steadily, and completely unseen. They couldn't get weather reports or airport information. Their data links were dead. The captain manually checked the performance charts to make sure Bristol's runway was long enough for a landing with reduced braking systems. It was, and that settled it. On the ground, Bristol controllers already knew something strange was coming. They had been warned by London ATC and had declared an emergency on EasyJet's behalf. Fire trucks lined the runway, sirens ready, but engines silent. The controllers broadcast wind and landing instructions blindly into the air, knowing the pilots couldn't hear a word. In the cockpit, the crew began their descent. The first officer flew manually and the captain handled configuration. When they tried to lower the landing gear, nothing happened. The lever moved, but the gear stayed locked inside the fuselage. The indicator lights stayed dark. They quickly realized why. The landing gear safety valve, which prevents deployment above certain speeds, had lost its airspeed data. Without inputs, it defaulted to stay closed. The system now refused to lower the gear. There was no time to hesitate. The captain pulled the alternate gear extension handle, bypassing the normal hydraulics. It worked. The gears clunked into place with a mechanical roar, finally locking down. As they lined up with Bristol's runway, the captain even tried using his cell phone to call air traffic control. It was a long shot, but worth trying. They didn't get a connection, though. The phone couldn't reach the tower, but the attempt itself said everything about their mindset. They weren't panicking. They were adapting, thinking, staying calm. The first officer guided the plane through the final approach manually. The descent was steady, the speed right where it should be. When the wheels finally touched down, it was smooth. Almost too smooth for a flight that had been one electrical failure away from disaster. The brakes still worked well enough to bring the aircraft to a halt. The fire trucks were already waiting, racing alongside the runway, but the jet stayed under control. The captain taxied it off the runway using the little steering authority left. Then came one last surprise. When they tried to shut down the engines, nothing happened. The switches did nothing. The engines just kept running as if refusing to end the nightmare. The pilots, exhausted but composed, finally pulled the fire handles to cut the fuel supply manually. The engines wound down at last. All 144 passengers stepped off safely. Most never knew how close they had come to catastrophe. To them, it was just another rough flight that landed a little late. When investigators arrived, they found the aircraft in a strange state. Systems were flickering, readings were frozen, and half the cockpit was still dead. The culprit was soon discovered. It was one faulty sensor contact inside the generator control unit, combined with a hidden fault that had prevented the pilots from restoring power to the essential bus. A single defect had nearly turned a modern Airbus into a powerless ghost at 32,000 feet. Yet through it all, the crew's quick thinking and composure saved every life on board. Sadly, this is not the only horrifying story from the aviation world. If you want to hear more about horrible plane crashes, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Goodbye for now.